So where else in America? This is like back in the newsroom. You get the news releases. And I actually got the guy who's writing the press releases here.
Yes. Is anybody reading them? That's my question.
Well, you corrected me a couple minutes ago. We have J.J. Reich, Senior Manager Press Relations for Federal Ammunition, amongst other things, Vista Outdoors. You reminded me, this is going to be, okay, guys, welcome to the Deer Talk Now podcast. J.J. is an ammo expert, as you might already know. If you don't, he is. We're going to talk about...
Loosely.
I prop everybody up on this podcast. Whitetail rifle hunting, muzzle loading, and turkey hunting we're going to talk today. But you had I guess you reminded me 5 minutes ago that the fire stick's now legal in Wisconsin. So we're gonna stash that over here because that's not what we're gonna start with.
I'm most excited about that though. But
I am too. I didn't know it, and you said I sent that to you like 10 days ago. I'm like, yeah, I read the press releases. So JJ writes these press releases. I get them. Of course I read them immediately.
Yep.
And we publicize them. But the one I want to start with, because we have a lot of rifle deer hunters that listen to the podcast.
Yes.
Please like and subscribe. That's all we ask you to do on these podcasts. That's it. That's all we ask. But
I have already, but
you do, and you actually can retain some of that information, which is incredible. But you guys came out with several new center fire rounds or offerings.
Yes.
This year, the one that was highlighted right when I didn't get to go to SHOT Show, Brad did. He came back with a lot of the news. Was that fusion tip design from Federal?
Correct.
So explain to me, like I always say, like I'm 5.
Yes.
What is the fusion bullet again, and what's new about it?
Well, so just to talk about the press releases quick, I work for a big company that owns several companies.
You guys have
a
Remington
big corporation
now?
that owns all these ammo companies. So it's Federal, and it's Heavy Shot, and it's CCI, and it's Spear, and now Remington. And so, like, my job is to get the press materials out to the media, like yourself. Mm-hmm. And so what that really relates to is my goal is to write or send 150 press releases a year.
Dang.
And I would say this one that we're going to talk about, all the rifle ammunition, was a SHOT Show release. So at SHOT Show, we announced all these new products. I would say out of the 150 releases, 30 come in the month of January. So if anybody misses anything in January, it's just because there's so much news in January. It's ridiculous. But
that's when all the products are released. It's if you're not familiar with the SHOT Show, it's the biggest trade show in the hunting industry,
right,
in Vegas every year. And we're not going to get to all of these. I would love to, but I know we're not. I know you have new offerings in the ELDX and in the Hammer Down too.
Yes,
yeah. The guys that don't love shooting straight wall. But what is that highlight with the fusion tip bullets?
So the fusion, and that's what I was going to say, was that I think one of the biggest news was the fusion tip this year. And so you're familiar with fusion. Fusion was released, I believe, in 2008.
I've shot a bunch of deer with it already.
Remember Brock Lesnar, the wrestler?
Yep.
And he was kind of our face.
He was
like
the
our
spokesman for it. Yeah.
Yep. And what fusion is, it's basically fused technology. So the lead core is fused or bonded to a copper jacket, and so bonding is what makes bullets tough and what makes. When you asked me earlier today, off the podcast, like what's my favorite deer bullet, it would be a bonded bullet. It doesn't really matter, as long as it's a bonded bullet. I would shoot a bonded bullet over any other bullet any day of the week.
Is that what the first bullet I ever shot was a Remington core lock?
Okay.
Is that what a Remington core lock is?
No. So a core lock bullet is a cup and core bullet. So it's just a lead bullet. Or a lead core with a copper jacket, and it's kind of locked together. So basically, it's kind of pinched together.
Okay.
So they put the lead core in the jacket, they form it, and then they kind of pinch it, and that's what core lock is. It's kind of locking it together with like some sort of mechanical mechanism.
In fusion, it's actually, for lack of a better phrase, welded together.
Well, yes. So I can't pronounce words all that well. That's why I'm a writer. But it's molecularly bonded.
Okay.
So the copper is by molecule, bonding itself to the lead core through a chemical process. And then that lead will form the jacket. And so they put lead core bullets in a chemical tank. They put in the copper, and then through kind of electrical process, and it's a lot of science that I don't really understand. By molecule, the copper will adhere to the lead, and kind of like a microwave, you just leave it in there really long, and the more time you leave it in there, the more jacket is
How they figure
formed
this
on
stuff
that.
out?
Nerds, man.
Yeah.
I love them.
Well, ammo nerds, and it's that when they say, "When am I ever going to use this math?" When you're in high school,
Right.
I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
I know the bullets perform really well.
Yep.
They penetrate like crazy. We shot them in Nebraska. I've shot numerous deer there.
Yes.
With it. I shot numerous deer in other places with it.
Yes.
Never. You probably explained this probably three times already.
Well, and that's why I said that I'm loosely an expert. All I am is just somebody who reads and talks about this stuff. The real experts are the guys that are doing
They're
this.
actually making this
They're
stuff.
actually making it, and I just try to communicate to people. But what happens is when you have a bonded bullet, then that core is bonded to that. The lead core is bonded to the copper jacket. So when the copper jacket opens up, that lead isn't breaking off or dissipating. It's staying on that jacket, and that's why you have what's called weight retention, where the bullet is impacting and it's opening up or mushrooming, so to speak, but the core is staying to the lead, the copper jacket, and so that is how you keep your weight retention, is because it's bonded. Now a core lock bullet or a cup and core bullet that could break, and that's why
I've actually seen that, and I didn't even know that until now.
Yes.
That's why back in the day we saved every piece of metal we found in the deer, and
exactly.
And actually, when you say cup, it's exactly what it looked like.
Yes. So now, and since we launched it in 2008, everyone's been asking for a tipped version of that. And what is that? That's just a ballistic tip put into the bullet. Now, some people think that you can just throw a tip onto a bullet and then you're good to go. That's not the case. You have to redesign the entire bullet, because the impact of that bullet is going to be quite different when there's a plastic tip on it. And so how is that bullet skived, or how is it designed so that it does open and perform like it's supposed to? Now,
and the tip is helping it with downrange accuracy?
It's basically helping it with ballistics. Now, can that correlate into downrange accuracy? Yes, because better ballistics, could be more accurate. But I think that really is more when you have longer range distances.
Okay.
A lot of people, especially in the Midwest or Wisconsin, Minnesota, we're shooting deer at 100-yard max, maybe, or 150. But it's the people who want or need to shoot a little farther. They typically want a better ballistic coefficient, or a better, a bullet to be better performing ballistically, and that's usually at the 300 yards or.
See, I would get into that, but
yards
no, I told you I have to cut you off for these other subjects.
Yes.
But if somebody is listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, got to get those mentions in there, and they say, okay, that sounds cool, but I am a long range guy.
Yep.
I live out in Wyoming or Colorado or Montana or wherever. Which specific ammo brands from Vista Federal would you recommend that they look at?
So basically, again, anything bonded. And what we talked about was there's the fusion bonding process, but then there's a whole nother bonding process. And that bonding process is what you'd see in our trophy tip line or our terminal scent line. Now that's going to be more of a heat chemical process. It's way more extensive and it takes a lot more time. But the bonding process is a little better, a little bit more premium. So, Fusion is a great round, especially this tip version, and it is bonded, but it's bonded in a way that's easier for us to sell at a certain price point. If you really want a premium bonding and premium bullet, then you'd want to go with the trophy bonded tip, or you'd want to go with terminal scent. Terminal scent is our best hunting bullet we've ever made, period, in the history of the company.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I have not shot it with those, but I have shot them with the When you just said before.
Trophy bonded tip.
Trophy bonded
Yes.
tip. Yeah.
So quickly the story goes, it's trophy bonded bear claw was the whole invention of that bonding process way back in the late 1990s,
Yep.
early 2000, and then that kind of came to trophy bonded tip, which is again the tip version of that because people want a higher ballistic coefficient on the bullet and better performing ballistically, so that we put the ballistic tip on that product, and then that kind of turned into I think it was called Edge. The term we called it the Edge, basically Edge TLR, which was terminal long range, which means that we did more technology and more things to that bullet to even make it better than trophy bonded tip, and so that product lasted only maybe 2 or 3 years because our engineers came up with the next version of it, which was even better than that one, and now it's called Terminal Ascent. So it started it started back in the late 90s, and now 2024 we have the best bonded bullet with Terminal Ascent.
And if you guys, we're talking with JJ Reich from Federal Ammunition. If you don't think this stuff doesn't change, it does. And that's what I find amazing about it. The other thing that I find amazing and actually quite satisfying, you told me this when we were turkey hunting in Illinois a couple weeks ago, is that, Federal's making ammo, Remington, you own these companies, but they're not all just coming. It's not like they're brewing Budweiser and now we're brewing Blatz.
Yep.
I mean, it's like just talk to that for a minute, because I know that you have buildings across the United States making ammo for these specific brands.
Yes. So the brands are the brands, the companies are the companies, the factories are the factories. Remington ammo is all made by Remington people with Remington, designs and Remington's time-tested products. There's not really spillover there. Remington's Core
It's not
Lock is
like
going to be Core Lock.
this next hour we're going to be making Remington and now we're making Federal. It doesn't
Right.
work that way.
No, they're making their stuff in Lone Oak, Arkansas, and then Federal is making all their stuff in Anoka, Minnesota, and all the Federal products are Federal products.
And Spear products are made out west.
Now they're
somewhere.
made in Lewiston, Idaho.
Idaho.
And yep. So now I can tell you that we do share ideas and we do share expertise and we share advice. And then we also share some technical expertise when one engineer is kind of stuck. They can call their sister company and say, hey, what do you do in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And so we do help each other, which basically just helps ammo become better. I believe that Remington's ammo is definitely becoming better since their sister companies with Federal, and Federal kind of helps them out. Just take it, the rimfire this year has really improved, and a lot of those improvements came from CCI, because CCI is the king of rimfire.
They are the king. Where are they making those?
Lewiston, Idaho.
Okay.
So CCI and Spears out of Lewiston, they're their own company. They do help us quite a bit on our rimfire. They help Remington on their rimfire, but they are the king of rimfire. And then again, Lone Oak, Arkansas is where all the Remington stuff is coming from. And they actually Remington has helped us with some of our hulls for target loads, for Federal target loads. So all the companies work really well together, but we are completely separate companies, completely separate products.
I'm keeping CCI in business just by killing skunks this year, by the way. I killed my fifth one this morning. But so that's fascinating. On the deer side, center fire, just give a shout out to the website where people can, because
yes,
a lot of times it's hard to keep track of all this stuff.
So again, with centerfire deer rifle ammunition, you want to look at fusion tipped, and then you want to look at terminal ascent, and that's just at federalpremium.com. And we do sell direct now too, so people can order ammo direct, and we ship it right from the factory to the door.
That's very convenient. Super convenient. Okay, moving on to muzzle loading, which you might not think about when you think about Federal, but if you've been paying attention, a few years ago, in conjunction with Traditions Firearms, Federal came out with what they call the Fire Stick, and Traditions had a muzzleloader to go with that. Essentially, what this is, it looks like a cartridge. It's not. It's just got basically the charge encapsulated in a little plastic tube.
Yes.
And then the gun is a special gun that's got a little. You call it a shelf, but if you look in there, you can't really see it. When you take that sabot and you push it down, you can't push it past that little shelf that's down in there. And then you crack the gun open like a single shot. You put the charge in, you snap it shut. You put your primer into that hull, and you can shoot it. And a lot of people say, well, that's not muzzle loading. Well, I not even respectfully, I vehemently disagree. Until you've shot it, it's muzzle loading. It's taken off. This week, we just talked about this.
Yep.
2 weeks ago. On April 18th, I know we were taping this ahead, Wisconsin became the 27th state to make it legal.
Well, yes,
during muzzleloader season.
Well, technically, they made it legal earlier in the month of April. It took me until April 18th to send the press release.
And then you sent it to me, and I said, "Oh yeah, I totally got it," and I forgot about it.
Yeah, no. So the fire stick is definitely muzzle loaded, and you have to load the bullet down the muzzle.
Right.
And so there were so many. Every single state had a different definition of what was a muzzle loader. There was no national or, if you know SAMI is the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturing Institute. They basically kind of set the whole stage for what ammo can be technically. So they didn't really have a definition of what a muzzleloader is. All these states had a different definition of what a muzzleloader is. Some states were just, you have to load the bullet down the muzzle to be a muzzleloader, and other states said you had to load the bullet and the powder down. So everyone was just kind of confused, and so it took us a long. So every state has to make that decision. So it took a while for some states were easy, where it's like, yeah, the way that they are defining a muzzleloader, it's the system would be fine. Other states were more complicated, and Wisconsin was definitely a complicated state as far as what they deemed to be a muzzleloader.
Yeah, Ian's going to put a map up on the screen for you guys to see where it's legal during muzzleloader season. Most states, can you think of any? We've used it in states where during regular firearm season they don't have a problem with it.
Correct.
This is the thing about not only this topic, and I'm not saying this because JJ's sitting here and he works for an ammo company. Until you actually use something,
correct.
It goes with crossbows. It goes with trail camera, especially like cellular trail cameras. Until you actually use it, I say just refrain from throwing those opinions out there, because why people say, well, why that's not muzzling? Why should you use it? I'm going to give you a couple reasons from my unbiased opinion. I could care less if anybody advertises this.
Sure.
For me, it's safer.
Mm-hmm.
You're more accurate.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I don't have to shoot that gun off. So, okay, I crack the gun open. I load the bullet. I crack the gun open. I put a load in there. I snap it shut. I'm ready to go hunting. At the end of the day, I crack it open. And they say, well, that's a single-shot rifle. Kind of. Yeah, okay, so I can shoot one, but I still got to go through the whole process of reloading a sabot. And it's a lot like any other kind of inline rifle. If I shoot that thing, I don't know about you, JJ, if I shoot my gun 3 or 4 times, I've got to clean that thing, because you're still getting the fouling in there. It's definitely more convenient, but it's safer that if I'm climbing up in a tree stand or I'm handing my gun to somebody, I crack it open, see it's unloaded.
Correct.
If I have a muzzleloader and I'm not quite sure, you don't know.
Yes.
Short of taking that breech plug out, you don't know if there's a charge in there.
Yes. Yep. So technically, if you have a bullet in it, it's loaded. But if you don't have the fire stick in it, it's not charged.
Right.
So if you're going to cross a fence, if you're going to climb a deer stand, the bullet could still be in the barrel, but the charge is completely out. So it's completely safe. There's no way that's going to go off. And so that's why it's safer as far as that goes. But it's also safer because that charge is loaded in the factory. So there's no way you could overcharge.
You can't overcharge. You couldn't put 4 pellets in there.
Yes, you can't put 4 pellets
You
in
know.
there. But people have put 4 pellets in the muzzle.
Oh, of course,
muzzle loader, and
they
that's,
have, and
that,
they've gotten
that's dangerous.
and they've gotten injured from it. Now I know there's guys. We're going to get everybody always wants to argue with me. It's like, okay, if you're a purist, so to speak, and you think like the only way you should be able to muzzleloader hunt is with a patch round ball or flintlock, by all means, knock yourself out. There are places you can do that.
Definitely.
Most muzzleloader seasons, I'm going to say 99.9% you can use an inline muzzleloader.
Yep.
This is essentially the same thing.
It's an inline muzzleloader.
It's an inline muzzleloader. You get one shot. You have to go through that whole process of shooting. You're not going to get a second shot very quickly. I mean, you still have to load that bullet down there.
Yes. The only difference between this and anything else is that the powder is encapsulated.
Yes.
So instead of being in pellet form,
So it won't
or
get
instead
wet.
of being loose, it's encapsulated. It's definitely not going to get wet. And then you have to put the primer in separately, just like you have to put a primer into a breech plug for an inline muzzleloader. You have to do that, but you can put it right into the capsule. So once you take that capsule out, again the rifle isn't charged, but you still have the charge that you can use again. So you don't, like you said earlier, you don't have to shoot the rifle to get the bullet out, or you don't have to soak the rifle,
or leave your rifle in the garage.
Yes,
which I've done for many, many years because I'm not shooting that thing. Like I was up north deer hunting, came home, but obviously you take the charge out, but I mean the primer out. But it was like, okay, that's sitting in there, and I even have had misfires with pellets over the years. It was way worse when you were loading granulated powder. That would tend to get wet quicker or moist, and it wouldn't go off, or you have a hang fire, which is dangerous.
Yes,
almost shot my foot off once doing that. In the old days.
Ouch.
But I don't know if you're into modern muzzleloading. I just recommend checking it out. I'm not this isn't a like okay, so you guys are the only ones who are loading fire sticks.
Correct.
But there's 2 companies now. I mentioned Traditions, but CVA just came out with a rifle.
Excellent.
So there's 2 manufacturers of the rifles that shoot that specific. And you can't shoot. You can't load that with pellets. I mean, that gun is specifically for this technology.
Exactly. And the other thing is with this whole thing is that it breaks down all barriers to get into muzzleloading. Let's be honest, muzzleloading can be very intimidating for people. It can also be really like a lot of hassle. Like my dad, him and I used to muzzleload a hunt all the time, but now he quit because he did not want to mess around with it anymore. It was too much of a hassle. It was too much of a pain in the butt. He definitely will go back using this system.
And the other thing, let's face it, muzzleloading seasons, most cases, there are some early ones. Kentucky, maybe Missouri. I'm trying to think of some. There's some states that have like early, like it's like September, muzzleloader seasons. But most of the muzzleloading seasons are at the end of the year, December. You're talking about.
So it gets people out again.
Get you out. You can. It's another way of enjoying deer season. And it extends it for you.
Yes, and again, it's a lot easier, but it's still muzzleloading. So there's still that challenge. So you have one shot. And yes, you can load a little faster, but you're still.
I would say that's debatable. I mean, it's very.
Well, we did testing. You can load a little faster.
Okay.
For sure, but at the same time, you still have to hunt. You still have to be a good hunter to get them close enough, and you still have to have shot placement.
I just like the fact that I can take that thing out, and I will admit it. I have back in the day with inline muzzleloaders. I took the percussion cap out. But then I'm lowering that gun to the bottom of the ground. It's got powder in it.
Right.
I don't know if that'd ever go off, but I still wasn't too comfortable about it. And I'm sure some guys forgot to take their cap out and did that. So I like that aspect of it. And the other thing I like about it, it's not getting wet. So you're not worrying about that.
There's one other thing I got to say about it is that it is Hodgdon 8. So Hodgdon 7, like 777 was huge in pellets,
Yep.
and it's one of the best powders. Hodgdon 8 is better than that, a lot better than that.
Really?
And
See, I should have known that. I didn't know.
and I don't know if Hodgdon 8 actually sells separately now or sells, just sells for regular inline muzzleloaders. But we are using Hodgdon 8 in these, and so it's a lot cleaner. We've shot this system. I personally have shot this system 10 times without cleaning it, and I was still hitting the 10x.
Well, that's like me changing my oil in my truck every 3,000 miles, which I'm told is not even necessary anymore.
So typically people are saying, with the inline muzzleloader, I think the typical thing is like you shoot clean every 3 shots or 5 shots. You can shoot 10 times with this thing.
The other, that's what I hated about regular muzzleloading I should say regular inline muzzleloading was that breech plug. You're always dinking around, making sure that you can see through light through the hole, and
some need special keys to get it out and everything.
It's fine. I mean, it's still fun. I like doing it. I actually still do it, but this is another way of enjoying the season. So that is the news as of a couple weeks ago. Wisconsin's the 27th state. So
yes,
I'm
Ian, so happy about
put that map up there again for these guys so they can see where they can do it. And then there was a couple of states on there, I think, that are colored in yellow where they're still looking. I know Nebraska was one. We used them in Nebraska, but it was during the regular firearms season.
Yep.
And they're looking at it, possibly allowing it.
Yeah.
But have you seen that? Now I know from your approach from the company, you're trying to get promote it.
Yep.
Have you seen that where you took it in and people finally learned about it and say, "Oh"?
Well, that's Pennsylvania for sure.
Really?
Pennsylvania has the highest number per capita of hunters, and everyone in Pennsylvania are crazy hunters, and it's all great, but they didn't really understand it. And then as soon as we brought it in there and demoed it for them, and as soon as they started shooting it, they were immediately like, "Oh yeah, this is awesome." And so, if you can convince Pennsylvania, in my mind, you can convince anybody.
Yeah, there's a heck of a lot of good hunters there. I mean, but a lot. I mean, they used to have 1 million deer hunters. Yeah. I know it's less now, but that is the epicenter. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin.
Yep.
That is and that is the biggest thing, and it's even amongst people that we're friends with, that are part of the community.
Yes.
One was turkey decoys. I remember that when I first went down to Alabama, they thought using a decoy was like sacrilegious, and my gosh, and how is that possibly fair? And it's like, have you hunted with a decoy?
Right.
Because our birds up here were stupid compared to the birds that they had, and then you start hunting turkeys with everything comes around. It's like, no, it's another tool that you can use.
Yeah.
A lot of times you scare turkeys away with it, but
yeah, I think for muzzleloading, I think like some states like Colorado, just their muzzleloading laws are just so strict. They don't even allow saboas. I think it's like they're very on. So I don't think that's going to be easy to them. If you look at that map, you'll see all the green states. There's 27 states. You'll see some yellow states like Indiana and Nebraska are still trying to figure it out, which just means that they're having meetings to define what their muzzleloader is. It's probably going to go green, I would think. And then some of them are just white because, like, Texas is white, and that's because they're not even really considering it because I don't think Texas has a muzzleloading season.
They might, but it's like they're actually. I've said this on the podcast many times. I love Texas and the fact that. I mean, some parts of some things in Texas politically now are swinging the other way, which is not good. But it's like, here are your tags. Ted always told me this. Here are your tags. This is when you can do it. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And you can do it with whatever you want.
Don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot.
Right.
If you want to use a bow, use a bow. If you want to use a gun, use a gun. If you want to use a muzzleloader, do that. Deer Talk Now is brought to you by 10-Point Crossbows and the all-new TX 440. This compact crossbow features new twin riser technology as well as a rail-less design to provide superior accuracy. Coming in at only 28 inches long and 6.5 inches wide, the TX 440 packs a powerful punch in a compact, ergonomic design. For more information, visit 10pointcrossbows.com. Okay, let's swap over from that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about turkeys a little bit because I I really love talking turkey guns with you because you know so much about this, turkey loads.
Yes.
And JJ will tell you this is the third press release that I had to highlight from him. This came out in March. I hope you guys know what heavy shot is because JJ is going to give you a background if you don't. But
Yes.
you guys came out with a 3-inch 28 gauge load, which I'm like, why? And then I got to shoot it through your special gun, and I'm like, dang. Okay, so let's start with heavy shot.
So
Tell me, like I'm 5,
Yes.
what is heavy shot and why would I use it on a turkey?
So Heavy Shot is a company. Heavy Shot's a brand. They actually started in again in the late 90s, early 2000s, and these were a group of engineers and hunters who wanted something better than steel. So, steel was actually mandated by the federal government, I think in the early 1990s, and I think 1991 or 1993, something like that, where all the federal government said that you cannot shoot anything but a non-toxic metal like steel at
That was
waterfowl.
only in the 90s? It wasn't before that?
It wasn't before that.
Okay.
Before that, certain states did, and certain regions.
We did here. I know that because I remember when I was in high school, we had to shoot steel if we wanted to go goose hunting.
And federal kind of they were like 2 decades ahead of that law. They saw it coming. It took a long time for it to actually be past the federal government, but a lot of states were saying no, you can't shoot lead. You have to shoot, something non-toxic. Steel was the best option. So it was, I believe, 1973 or 77, somewhere in there. It was when Federal started making all of their steel shots for waterfowl because we knew it was going to happen. We didn't think it was going to be that slow, but 20 years later, it became a thing. So by the time it actually became a thing, so many people were shooting steel already.
It was kind of like a non-event.
Yes, the 70s, 80s, everyone was shooting steel. But, steel is very lightweight. You have to up your shot size quite a bit if you want anything similar to the lethality of lead. So, if you're shooting 6 lead at ducks and you've always shot 6 lead, then you're going to jump down. You have to go to a 4 steel. That's why steel number 4 is so popular, or 2s for, or even BB.
2s were what we shot for geese back then.
Yes, or T's.
Yep.
Those are pretty big pellets, so your pellet count in that shell is going to be very low, when you have that many big pellets in that. So there's a group of engineers on the West Coast that are trying to come up with something, and that's when they came up with a tungsten alloy. They used tungsten, and then they used tin, and they used nickel, and they used a bunch of other metals to develop a new non-toxic metal to compete against steel for waterfowl, and they named their product Heavy Shot, and they became their own company. Now, companies like Federal, we had been making our own tungsten alloy too, and we were just selling it as a product, not a whole company name or whole brand, but it was a tungsten alloy product that we were using as well, and then other companies did too, but Heavy Shot just basically hung their hat on it and said that's all we're going to load. And their tungsten alloy was originally 12 grams per cc. So what that means is if you take a 1 centimeter cube of that material and you weigh it, it's going to weigh 12 grams. And that's a way to define how dense or how heavy a metal is. For example, steel is 7.8 grams per cc. And then
much lighter.
Yes, and then bismuth is 9.8, I believe, grams per cc, and then by all comparisons, lead is 11.2 grams per cc.
Oh,
so their tungsten alloy
was
actually heavier than
lead.
Yeah, so they basically would say heavier than lead. That was their tagline, but it's non-toxic, so you could really get on a smaller shot size than steel if you shot this 12 grams per cc tungsten alloy. And so that was their Heavy Shot, which is this tungsten alloy. And so they were around, and they started making turkey loads, and they started making all kinds of loads. Do you remember Heavy 13?
Mm-hmm.
So that was really popular for turkey. That just meant it was 13 grams per cc. So they just upped the.
So I just figured what a heavy 18 means.
Yeah. So what is heavy 18 then?
It's 18 grams per cc,
And
which
that's TSS.
That's tungsten super shot
Yes.
is what it is.
So basically what that means is there's one company that that has developed and patented this tungsten alloy, and they call it tungsten super shot, or TSS for short. It's 18 grams per cc. It's the heaviest tungsten alloy on the market. Nobody else can make it because they have it patented, and so now they sell it to everybody. That's why you see.
I did not know this whole story.
Okay, so that's why you see Heavy Shot TSS, or you see Winchester's TSS, or you see Apex TSS.
But TSS is heavy shots.
TSS, nope. TSS is basically a brand of pellet. It's this TSS company makes it, and then they sell it to
this is a different company. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so they make it and they sell it to everybody. So they sell it to Heavy Shot, they sell it to Federal, they sell it to Apex, they sell it to everybody because it's their product. That's why you see so much TSS product.
That's why you got Federal TSS, and then you've got Federal Heavy
Shot.
18,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
heavy shot.
So then if other companies want to have tungsten alloy, then they have to make their own. And if they make their own, it's going to be less than TSS because it can't be TSS.
These guys perfected it.
And do you know what pure tungsten is?
No.
Pure tungsten is 19 grams per cc.
Oh my God.
So they're only, so they're basically one gram per cc less than real tungsten.
So you couldn't get any better than that.
You can't get any better than that. That's why everybody buys it. But if you want to produce products that is a tungsten alloy that is 12 grams per cc, then you can do Heavy Shot. Now 12 grams per cc is going to be a lot cheaper than TSS. Right. And so that you're able to create
this stuff
products.
is not cheap, guys. I mean,
No.
this is $70 a box for turkey loads.
It's definitely
which
not
seems
cheap.
like a lot. Okay, so you got the brains there. He knows all this stuff. I'm going to say I got the brawn because, you know me, I just like to kill stuff.
Yes.
And I'm just telling you, okay, I got a brand new Mossberg 940 turkey gun.
Yep.
It's a semi-auto. That gun, and actually I was going to put a Carlson choke on it. I didn't. I just have the choke that came with it, which is I haven't even patterned it yet, but I shot a turkey this morning. With Heavy 18 is a flopless turkey rig. I mean, and I'm talking, and I hate to say distances because everybody will start jumping all over that, but that is a legit 60-yard gun.
So, so when you have a dense metal, when you have a dense pellet material like TSS, it's going to carry its velocity and it's going to carry its penetration energy farther downrange, and because it's so dense, you can drop pellet sizes. So from if you are a copper plated lead turkey guy, number 4, number 5, let's just say number 5 because 5 is pretty popular, that is equivalent to shooting a TSS number 9s.
Right.
Okay. But for a standard 3-inch 12 gauge, and let's say it's an 1.5 ounces or 1 3/4 ounces, you're going to be looking at like 256 pellets of number 5s in a shell. But when you do that same payload with number 9 TSS, you're looking at 400, 500 pellets.
At least 400.
So you're doubling how many pellets are going down range. And when you have more pellets going down range, you have more of an opportunity to hit and
kill it. But the other thing I know where people's minds are going here is like, well, you're doubling the amount of pellets, you're going to wreck that turkey. I have not found that to be the case.
Well, they're also really small pellets.
Small pellets,
so
tight patterns.
Correct.
I've killed a lot of turkeys. I've yet to pepper one so bad where it's like I don't even want to eat this thing because I'm going to be biting into
exactly
tungsten pellets. But the sheer power on it is just. And let's face it, it's kind of like bow hunting. How many deer have you shot with a bow past 30 yards? Me, handful, not many. Mm-hmm. Same thing with turkeys. Like I say, it's a legit 60-yard gun. I've killed 2 or 3 turkeys in my life over 50 because
Yep.
I won't take those shots. But at a 30-yard shot with a pattern that's coming out of there like this,
Yep.
and you've got a nice solid rest, either on a stick or something like that. Man.
Well, the thing is that I want to call in. I like to call. I love turkey calls.
If they don't answer, I don't like to do it, but I
Well,
still will. But
I like to call them in. Like I set the decoys up at 25 yards. I want to call them in at 25 yards, and I want to get up close and personal. But sometimes they just aren't going to cooperate. Like that time you and I were in Illinois this spring. I knew for a fact that turkey was not going to come in, and it was about to leave. So I had TSS my gun. I practiced with my gun quite a bit. I have a red dot on my gun. I know how that gun shoots, and so I took the shot and
he was dead.
Yeah, killed the bird.
It wasn't like taking a flyer at him.
No,
You knew that once you pull that trigger, you're going to kill him, and that's the thing about this. Like I said, now there's two different. This guy's a turkey geek. He's a lot like Brian Lovett. I mean, he's eating up with it. I love it, but I do have my limits where it's
Yep.
like after 2 weeks of this, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I kind of check out. And I know guys will say that's too much money. It most certainly is for most people. But if that's your thing and you like to do it, it's just like we were talking about the other thing. Educate yourself on it and then decide for yourself if you like it.
right.
But the pellet thing for me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
The pellet thing for me is the biggest thing because, and actually you said this when we were patterning guns, we shot. If you don't have that ultimate, like, damn, that is an awesome pattern feeling after shooting your gun, you really shouldn't, you're going to have to rein yourself back. But if you do have that feeling, that confidence is a lot like bow hunting.
Yep.
If you think that 30-yard shot is a slam dunk, you can push that to 35. If you think that turkey shot at 30 yards is a slam dunk, you can push it to 40.
And
And that's, I think, the key with some of this stuff.
Yeah, I was also going to say too, with turkey hunting, if you have one tag and you shoot once, in a year and you killed your turkey, you're not spending a lot of money at that point.
Even if it's $15, well,
so you might buy a box of 5 and it could last you a couple of years.
if you guys are killing more than one, if you're killing like 5 or 10, we'll come and share camp with you or something.
I think if somebody is
make
that
coffee.
dedicated to shoot 5 or 10 turkeys, they don't care how much money they spend.
I don't think they care.
I don't.
Either that, or they have some really good hunting.
I mean, so this goes with anything. This goes with whitetail hunting. It goes with turkey hunting. It goes with any big game hunting. The only thing that actually connects to the animal is the projectile. That's either a bullet or it's a bullet from a cartridge and a rifle, or a broadhead, or a pellet out of shot shell. And so if it's the only thing that actually connects to the animal, why would you chintz on that? Because it's the most important thing.
Yeah,
actually.
That's why I'm always wearing the sever hat for bow hunting, because I always say they have to be scary sharp. Well, your shot shell better be scary.
Yes, I agree.
Because that's what's doing it. Got to cut him off. He is JJ Reich. I am Dan Schmidt. Thank you for joining us for Deer Talk Now. Again, like and subscribe where you're ever listening to the podcast or watching it, and you can watch all of them on our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube.com/DDH online, and you're going to get them all there. And the other thing, Ian, what am I forgetting here?
Check us out on Spotify.
You can listen to the podcast there. We thank you very much. Bringing you a new podcast every Thursday with Deer Talk Now.